The top stories tonight. In Y News, Metro Manila's busiest thoroughfare got busy again on the first day of GCQ in the metro, while the PNP says day one of GCQ and MGCQ in parts of the country was generally peaceful.
The MRT and the Philippine National Railways begin to accommodate train passengers again, but with limited capacity.
The Education Department, or DepEd, starts its remote enrollment for school year 2020-2021. The Manila City government breaks ground for nearly 1 billion peso condominium projects.
It's been 10 days of no new reported cases of coronavirus infections in New Zealand.
And find out why a 3 Michelin-star restaurant in Virginia reopens with life-size mannequins. Good evening, Philippines and the world. I am Jorlene Delgado. Today is Monday, the first day in the month of June, year 2020. Also the first day of transitioning to different community quarantine levels in the country. I hope you're all doing well.
Join us in the next 45 minutes as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
To start with William Jago, we are on board the UNTV radio mobile booth and we are here in Katipunan Avenue in Quezon City, just in front of UP Town Center. Let's have a quick look, Jago William, on the situation outside. Jago, as we all know, Metro Manila has been placed under general community quarantine starting today. And so far, here in our area, we have light traffic on Katipunan Avenue going to Commonwealth Avenue. And on the other side of the road, there is also light traffic, though there is a buildup of cars from time to time at the stoplight area. So far, Jago, William, we are not experiencing any delays as of the moment. We have a light and at times moderate situation here in our area, unlike in other major thoroughfares in Metro Manila, just like Commonwealth Avenue and the major thoroughfare of EDSA earlier today, where a lot of cars were seen plying the roads, and a lot of our commuters were also experienced a hard time in getting a trip for their work. And Jago William, I also monitor the situation on EDSA today. An early buildup of vehicles greeted motorists in parts of EDSA as Metro Manila woke up to general community quarantine. Aside from private vehicles, transport services have started plying the major thoroughfare under a limited capacity. Based on the assessment of the Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, there were more private vehicles that traversed EDSA today compared to commuters. Several buses have been rolled out to augment the railway sector, while over 23,000 taxis and Transport Network Vehicle Services, or TNVS, also resumed its operations. Only 4 stations were designated for the drop-off and pick-up points of the bus augmentations. These are North Avenue, Quezon Avenue, Ayala Avenue, and Taft Avenue stations. This means buses are not allowed to stop to fetch passengers along EDSA in between Quezon Avenue and Ayala Avenue. However, Jago Williams, some commuters were unaware of the bus augmentation system, causing them to wait for nothing in various bus stops.
Lalakad na lang po siguro ulit papunta dun sa MRT. Wala na pong, malilate na rin po ako eh. Wala din po palang bus, so parang ganun pa din. Hindi pa rin naibsan yung paghihirap ng commuters.
Pupunta sana sa dulo kung may bus. Eh, ang masama nga ma'am, wala po ma'am. Ma'am, wala po magagawa po ma'am, maglalakad na lang po.
The MMDA encourages commuters in between Quezon Avenue and Ayala Avenue to take the MRT Line 3 instead. The Department of Transportation appeals for understanding as they continue to study the public transport scenario.
Humingi rin kami ng inyong pag-intindi. Kasi nga ho, wag nating kalimutan na tayo po ay nasa kwarantina pa rin ho. At ang nangingibabaw ho sa pagdating sa kagawa ng transportasyon ay ang inyong kalusugan, ang inyong kaligtasan.
The MMDA also urges the private vehicles to use the rightmost lane to avoid traffic buildup in other lanes. From the usual yellow lane, buses under the augmentation system have been assigned to use the two innermost lanes at the left side beside the MRT Line 3. Meanwhile, the PNP assures its more than 205,000 personnel are ready to monitor the compliance of the public with the minimum health protocol set by the Health Department. According to PNP Chief Police General Archie Gamboa, their checkpoint operations will continue. Curfew for non-workers will also proceed, as well as travel restrictions for persons not authorized to be outdoors. Those who wish to travel to their provinces must first seek travel authority from police precincts. The PNP chief underscores that a travel pass is not required among authorized persons outside of residence. Police General Gamboa noted field reports gathered by the PNP Command Center from police regional offices indicating generally peaceful and orderly situation nationwide on day one of GCQ and MGCQ.
The Duterte administration appeals to the public for more patience on the first day of General Community Quarantine or GCQ in Metro Manila. Our Malacanang correspondent, Rosalie Cos, will tell us why.
On the first day of work under the General Community Quarantine in the National Capital Region, commuters got stranded on many roads. This was the scenario on Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City this morning. Workers waited for at least 2 hours to hail a ride, but the Quezon City Task Force Disciplina had only a few available shuttle service for commuting workers. With this, the Duterte administration appeals for more patience as the resumption of public transportation will be implemented phase by phase. The government also asks for employers' understanding and consideration for their employees if they won't be able to come to work on time or not at all due to lack of public transport. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año also says this is the reason why they encourage the private sector to implement alternative work arrangement.
Kaya nga po may mga pinapropose tayong work schedule at saka yung number of attendance ng manggagawa sa isang opisina para po magkaroon ng adjustment.
Meanwhile, as a solution, the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Department of Transportation deployed buses and trucks to transport the stranded passengers in Metro Manila, including those on Commonwealth Avenue. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Light Railway Transit System, or LRT, resumed its operations today to serve passengers who traveled to work on the first day of General Community Quarantine in NCR. Some passengers say it's more convenient with the LRT reopening, while others experience inconvenience. Aiko Miguel, who interviewed some of those train passengers, will tell us why.
If you are a worker planning to commute through the LRT lines, be sure to wear a face mask because any LRT station is one of the many places where the no face mask no entry policy is imposed. Police visibility is in place to make sure the platforms and the coaches won't be crowded. Ray Rejas is one of the LRT passengers on the first day of GCQ in Metro Manila. He left their home in Bulacan at 5 this morning. 3 hours later, he was still waiting to enter Roosevelt Station.
So far naman, okay naman pag may sasakyan for my own observation. Pero kung wala kang sasakyan, mahirap talaga.
For Helson Caporado, a healthcare worker, the government should add more public vehicles during this time when employees are allowed to return to work.
Sa transpo, parang kulang pa kasi sa dami ng kailangang sumakay.
While for Joy Saiga, a mall employee, it's convenient that LRT stations resumed their operations because she had been walking a few kilometers to work from Monumento to Manila City when LRT operations were still suspended.
Ano po, nung wala pa pong operate ang LRT, alas 5 po, naglalakad na ako. Hopefully po sana, mas maaga na ako makakarating.
Inside LRT1 stations, there are marks to indicate where passengers are allowed to seat. When the train arrives at the last station, LRT personnel disinfect the trains before traveling back to the opposite route. Train commuters are advised to go to the stations earlier than usual so they won't spend much time in queues and their trips won't be delayed. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Only 6 Philippine National Railways trains operated today. Aside from that, what used to be a 30-minute gap between train trips became 1 hour. This is due to the implementation of limited capacity to comply with the national government's guidelines for the resumption of train operations. According to the PNR, 4 more trains will begin to travel in the coming days to serve the riding public. The PNR asks its patrons to be patient with the limited operations.
Meanwhile, the Metro Rail Transit or MRT Line 3 resumed its operations today, but only partially. Joan Nano explains why.
MRT3 resumed its operations today as Metro Manila shifts to general community quarantine. The MRT management deployed 20 train sets, including 3 Dalian trains commissioned by Sumitomo Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Contrary to what was expected, there were only a few MRT passengers today. Instead of taking the train, some passengers opted to take bus augmentation at the North Avenue station. With this, the MRT management was able to easily impose physical distancing at the stations and inside the trains.
Hindi natin alam kung ano ba talaga ang magiging sentimiento ng mananakay. So far sa ngayon, mababa ang turnout ng pasahero natin. Meron din kami pinag-aaralan, baka mamaya kulang lang yung mga naghahatid ng pasahero sa linya ng MRT3. At yan naman ay aming pagtutuunan ng pansin over the days na tatakbo next week ng ating CCQ.
Security personnel were deployed on the platform and inside the trains to assure physical distancing is strictly observed. Visual marks were placed within the station and on the platform. Plastic barriers on the train seats were set up to maintain the 1-meter distance apart among passengers. The schedule of trips stays the same. The first trains in North Avenue and Taft Avenue depart at 5:30 a.m. The last trip is scheduled at 9:10 p.m. Transportation officials remind passengers to be mindful of the safety health protocols to avoid the possible transmission of COVID-19. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Manila City government breaks ground today for the construction of the nearly 1 billion peso condominium projects, which will benefit the less fortunate residents of Manila City. Dante Amento tells us why live. Yes, Dante, good evening.
Yes, William, good evening. Let me just give you an update. In Manila City, Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso led the groundbreaking ceremony of 2 public housing projects called Condominium 1 and Condominium 2 in Vitas, Tondo this morning. Each project is worth almost 500 million pesos, according to the city mayor, which is expected to be completed in 2 years' time. Condominiums 1 and 2 can house about 336 families from the less fortunate residents or informal settlers of Manila.
Bibigyan natin ng tuldok, unti-unti, sa mahabang panahon, ang pamumuhay sa gitna ng kalsada, sa gitna ng highway, sa gilid ng dagat, sa gilid ng ilog. Magkakaroon ng pag-asa.
Other projects under the Build Manila projects will follow this month, like the Binondominium Bagong Ospital ng Maynila and Bagong Manila Zoo. William Mayor Dumagoso stresses that the city will not stop serving its people in spite of the current COVID-19 pandemic. William?
Thank you, Dante Amento, live. Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health reports there are more than 6,000 unvalidated cases of coronavirus infections in the Philippines to date. But the DOH says the public need not worry about the mounting of cases in the country. Aiko Miguel, our health correspondent, is back to give us the details why.
Since Friday, the Department of Health has been reporting fresh and late cases of COVID-19 in the country. Reports have been alarming because from more than 16,000 cases, the number jumped to more than 18,000 cases today. According to Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, fresh cases will just be seen on the case bulletin released daily by the DOH, when the remaining 14 laboratories will be able to validate the 6,800 COVID-19 test backlog results.
Meron ho tayo ngayon, we have around 6,800 pa na kailangan pong i-validate natin na atin pong pagtatrabahuan sa mga susunod na araw para po magkaroon na po tayo ng at least approximation between the unique individuals tested and those confirmed positive for COVID-19.
Based on DOH report, 15 of the 42 operational laboratories have submitted their report on fresh cases. The reason why only 16 fresh cases were reported last night. The DOH reiterates the cases have been mounting in the past days because the validation process of the COVID-19 test backlog results in the country are accelerated. The Health Department once again reminds the public to not be complacent despite ease restrictions across the country. Remember to follow the minimum health standards, regular and proper hand washing and sanitation, wearing a face mask, and physical distancing, among others. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of more than 6.1 billion confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. The fast-spreading disease has claimed more than 372,000 lives, while more than 2.6 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. The United States of America, as of today, remains to have the most recorded cases, now at nearly 1.8 million, while healthcare workers in the U.S. have helped more than 444,000 patients recover from the infection. On the other hand, India is now the world's 77th or the 7th worst hit country, with close to 191,000 confirmed positives, including nearly 92,000 recoveries. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, as of 4 p.m. today, the Department of Health says there are 18,638 total COVID-19 positives. That includes 555 cases reported today. We have lost 3 more patients. Now the country's death toll stands at 960. With the help of our valiant medical frontliners, 70 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 3,979.
President Rodrigo Duterte is still in Davao City today. According to presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque, aside from a family reunion, the president will also conduct official functions while in Mindanao after arriving last week. The president is also expected to give a public address and meet with the Interagency Task Force against COVID-19 in Davao City on Thursday. Some IATF members will travel to Davao City for that meeting. And more than 25,000 overseas Filipino workers stranded in different quarantine facilities have been successfully transported to their hometowns, according to a report from the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE. The Labor Department accomplished the Hatid Probinsya for OFWs exactly 1 week after President Rodrigo Duterte ordered the immediate release of the COVID-19 cleared OFWs. Of that number, nearly 10,000 were transported by air, 7,900 traveled by land, and 385 returned by sea. More than 6,000 were fetched by their relatives from their temporary accommodation. Meanwhile, around 200 seafarers remain on board quarantine ships as they await test results and for safe manning purposes. The country's Department of Foreign Affairs welcomed today 330 Filipino seafarers of MV Britannia from the United Kingdom. The seafarers were tested for COVID-19 and assessed at the DFA's one-stop shop desks. Meanwhile, the Philippine Embassy in Tokyo successfully repatriated almost 200 Filipinos who got stranded in Japan. A total of 160 Filipino tourists, students, and Filipino workers stranded in Japan departed from Narita International Airport in Tokyo via a chartered flight to Manila.
A branch of the Social Security System, or SSS, in Quezon City went busy today. Our correspondent, Ray Pelayo, observed how the physical transactions went. He even talked to some older adults or senior citizens who came personally to the SSS office. Tell us why, Ray Pelayo.
Even senior citizens physically came to the Social Security System, or SSS, Diliman branch in Quezon City. The agency's door reopened today to serve members who want to apply for loans and other claims. Most of the elderly who came here wanted to process their pension claims.
Kasi yung tagal na akong naghahanap na naghihintay doon sa ayuda, sinasabi nila hanggang ngayon wala eh. Kaya personal na ako nagpunta.
Isasabit na lang po, naabutan ako ng lockdown. Dapat nung April. Kailangan ko eh. May maintenance na po kasi ako.
The day went busy for SSS personnel, but they made sure that safe physical distance was maintained all the time. There were floor markers too. Applicants could place their application forms inside boxes to prevent physical contact with other people inside the office. The SSS appeals to its members to use the online platform for applications and loans instead of personally coming to any SSS branch to prevent virus transmission.
Dinagdagan namin, marami na po kami ilalagay na serbisyo sa online para mabawasan yung nagtatransact sa branches. Retirement po, pwede ng online, yung maternity benefit claim natin sa online na rin.
The agency has extended the deadline for the payment of accrued contributions until June 15 to give employers and members ample time. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Trade and Industry inspected several salons and barber shops in Quezon City today. Joanna, who was there during the inspection, will tell us why.
Beginning June 7, salons and barber shops in GCQ areas may reopen partially as allowed by the Department of Trade and Industry. During today's inspection conducted by DTI personnel led by Undersecretary Ruth Castello, salon and barber shop employees were seen wearing personal protective equipment and face shield. At the reception, there were plastic barriers placed to reduce physical contact. This is all in compliance with the minimum health standards the IATF on COVID-19 has set. Under general community quarantine, salons and barber shops are allowed to operate with 30% capacity. Services will be limited to haircut only. Other services such as blow dry, hair dye, massage, manicure, and pedicure remain prohibited. As they comply with the minimum health standards, owners of salon and barber shops will impose rate increase.
One of the preparations that we have would be the capes. From a regular rate of 300 pesos, on June 7, it will be, for the first visit of our customers, it will be 500 pesos. But that's because we'll be giving away the barber capes.
This salon in Congressional Avenue refuses to open by June 7. Its owner argues this will mean more losses than income.
Sa totoo lang po, kung haircut lang po yung papayagan, hindi po talaga kakayanin para mag-survive po ang salon. Kasi po, kung haircut lang po, kulang pa po yung pambayad sa rent namin, lalo na po, limited po yung shares natin.
The DTI explains they have no jurisdiction over regulating the prices of services offered by salons and barbershops. But the DTI appeals to salon and barbershop owners to impose reasonable rate increases and not to take advantage of the situation. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Education has now started enrolling students online through its remote enrollment program. Under the program, students, parents, and even most teachers need not to report physically to school for the enrollment. Vincent Arboleda will give the details why.
In a bid to follow the government's health protocols to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the Department of Education began today its remote enrollment program. Through this, a parent or an enrollee can use the internet and register on the website of the preferred school. Class advisors are also required to contact the parents or guardians of the students to facilitate the enrollment. For the first 2 weeks of June, DepEd will accept only those enrollments processed via the internet. While from the third week of June, booths or kiosks will be set up in schools and barangay halls to facilitate enrollment for students who have no internet connection. That's according to DepEd Undersecretary Diosdado San Antonio. Parents can get a copy of printed enrollment form and survey, bring it home, answer it, and then return to the school to drop the form into a designated drop box.
Para maiwasan yung pagdagsa ng marami ay kailangan naka-schedule kung anong grade ang pupunta sa anong araw at sa anong oras. Pero sinabi rin po namin na kung ang isang magulang ay may 3 anak, huwag nang pabalikin sa susunod na schedule ng grade.
Infographic materials are also posted on the gates of schools to indicate the contact numbers of enrollment focal persons and for clarifications. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Senate has approved on third and final reading a bill that gives the President the authority to postpone the opening of classes beyond August. Senator Win Gatchalian co-authors and sponsors Senate Bill number 1541. He thanks his colleagues for recognizing the urgency of the proposed measure and giving their approval before the sine die adjournment. Should the proposed measure become a law before the opening of classes 2 months from now, President Rodrigo Duterte and the Department of Education would have more flexibility to start the school year 2020 to 2021 if COVID cases continue to surge and threaten the safety of learners, teachers, and non-teaching personnel.
President Rodrigo Duterte certifies the new anti-terrorism bill as urgent. Last Friday, the House Committees on Public Order and Safety and on National Defense and Security voted in favor of the bill designed to intensify the law against terrorism, but ease the legal restrictions of law enforcers. Netizens and some lawmakers expressed concern over some of the bill's key provisions, which they say can be used against critics and opposition leaders once enacted. There's also a provision which will allow police and military personnel to conduct a 60-day surveillance on suspected terrorists and require telecommunity companies to reveal their call and message histories. However, the Duterte administration refutes these allegations.
Ang comment ko lang doon sa mga nag-oppose dito ay wala namang basihan yung kanilang mga opposition dahil binasa ko yung panukalang batas. Yun naman karapatan ng mga tao ay may sapat na provisions. At saka yung mga law enforcement agencies ay may sapat ding kaparusahan sa mga nag-aabuso.
Admiral Joel Garcia, the 26th Philippine Coast Guard Commandant, formally retires from 35 years of service today, June 1. The entire PCG expresses gratitude for his leadership. Assuming his position is Vice Admiral George Ursabia Jr. after President Rodrigo Duterte appointed him as the 27th PCG Commandant. Vice Admiral George Ursabia has served for more than 36 years in active service. He has held various positions with major responsibilities both in the Philippine Navy and the PCG. Admiral Garcia is confident Vice Admiral Ursabia will continue the significant developments that as a leader at the helm must geared upon for the greater benefits of the command. Vice Admiral Ursabia, aside from being the commander of the Marine Environmental Protection Command, or MEPCOM, is designated as the Task Group Commander of Joint Task Force Laban COVID-19 Water Cluster.
In other news, the PCG also announced the operations of the National Operations Center for Oil Pollution of the Philippine Coast Guard Marine Environmental Protection Command resumes beginning today. Those transactions include the acceptance of applications for the issuance, renewal, and approval of marine environmental protection certificates and other related documents.
And for the news abroad, here's Elsie Marcos live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening, Elsie.
Good evening, William, and of course to Diego and Harleen.
Tell us, what's life like in New Zealand under Alert Level 2?
Yes, William. It's holiday today here in New Zealand as we are celebrating Queen's birthday. Last Friday, Kiwis have been encouraged to enjoy a normal holiday weekend after 7 straight days of no new COVID cases, and there is now just 1 active case in this country. And later, I will tell you why 11 airports have reopened in Saudi Arabia and why Italy's Colosseum was bathed in the Italian flag's colors.
Okay, all right, Elsie. Please tell us why.
As of today, there have been 10 days of no new reported cases of COVID-19 here in New Zealand under the leadership of Jacinda Ardern. There remains to be just 1 active case, the Ministry of Health has said in its updates. The number of confirmed and probable cases remains at 1,504 and the death toll remains at 22. There are no more COVID patients in the hospital. The NZ COVID Tracer app has now recorded 476,000 registrations, an increase of 8,000 since this time yesterday. The ministry said using the app would help to identify, trace, test, and isolate any cases of COVID-19. Yesterday, the ministry said dozens of COVID-19 community-based testing centers around the country were closing. Some district health boards were now starting to tell people to go back to their GPs for COVID-19 swabbing. The containment of COVID-19 has prompted political leaders from National, ACT, and NZ First to call for the country to be moved to level 1 immediately. Elsewhere in Japan, the tallest tower in the country and one of Japan's popular tourist sites, the Tokyo Skytree, reopens today. A number of virus prevention measures are set in place for visitors and personnel. A thermal camera was set up at the entrance to screen visitors' temperatures. Visitors, aside from children who are younger than elementary school age, are required to wear a mask. Admission is limited to 20 to 30% of the maximum capacity. Tokyo Skytree operator Tobu Tower Skytree said the site will be open for shorter hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. time in Japan, in line with the Tokyo government's request to reduce business hours. In Italy, the doors of Rome's ancient Colosseum opens to the public today with strict social distancing regulations. Attendance is allowed only with pre-booking. On Sunday, the eve of its reopening after 3 months under lockdown, the Colosseum was bathed in red, green, and white of the Italian flag. Numbers of tourists visiting the site is estimated to drastically drop this year, with many people still under lockdown and unable to travel. During 2019, 7.5 million visited the site, making it one of the most viewed monuments in the country. Elsewhere, Turkey reopens restaurants, cafes, and parks on Monday and lifts intercity travel curbs as the country eases coronavirus restrictions. President Tayyip Erdogan's government has been gradually easing measures for the past few weeks as authorities say the outbreak is now under control. Like what Harlan reported earlier, Turkey now has more than 160,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia reopens its airports for domestic flights as the kingdom started easing the restrictions in place to fight the spread of the coronavirus. As of today, 11 airports have restarted operations according to the spokesperson for the Saudi Civil Aviation Authority.
From this gradual reopening process, we want to achieve an operational efficiency that will guarantee the safety of the passengers by avoiding congestion or pressure on the terminals or the planes, while applying social distancing and other recommendations from the Ministry of Health to ensure safe flights.
Saudi authorities said earlier this month that restrictions would be lifted in 3 phases, culminating in a curfew ending on June 21 with the exception of Mecca. Saudi Arabia, with some 30 million inhabitants, has reported more than 83,300 infections and 480 deaths from the disease, the highest among the 7 Gulf Arab states. And just an update on the SpaceX crewed space mission, the International Space Station has 2 new members with potentially months-long stay in the orbital laboratory. On Sunday, NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley arrived at the ISS with 3 crew members inside after docking their SpaceX Crew Dragon craft. This space mission marks the first U.S. space vehicle to do so with a crew since 2011. The launch on Saturday, May 30 by SpaceX, the private rocket company of billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, represented another milestone for the reusable rockets it pioneered to make the space lift less costly and more frequent. It also marked the first time that commercially developed space vehicles owned and operated by a private entity rather than NASA have carried Americans into orbit. The last time NASA launched astronauts into space aboard the brand new vehicle was 40 years ago at the start of the Space Shuttle program. And those are the reasons behind the news here in New Zealand and in other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you, Elsie. You stay safe there in Auckland.
A company in Seoul uses an automated robot which can detect people who are not observing proper physical distance, not wearing a face mask, and with a fever. Eric Ferrer has the story why.
It approaches employees and disperses them if seen chit-chatting. This robot is like a police telling people what to do and what not to do. Equipped with an LED screen, it greets visitors at the lobby of the headquarters of SK Telecom in downtown Seoul. It not only checks body temperatures, dispenses hand sanitizers, and disinfects the floor, it also polices who is wearing and who's not wearing a face mask. Having largely managed to contain an epidemic that infected more than 11,000, South Korea is steadily transitioning from intensive social distancing towards what the government calls distancing in daily life. The robot, developed jointly by SK Telecom, South Korea's largest mobile network operator, and Omron Electronics Korea, an industrial automation solution provider, transmits data to its server in real time. Powered by the telecom company's 5th generation technology, it sets off an alarm if anyone's temperature is over 37.5 Celsius. The developer said they added a function to hide faces mirrored in the screen to protect people's privacy. Armed with ultraviolet lamps and 2 automatic disinfectant sprays, the robot can disinfect 99% of 33 square meters of surface areas in just 10 minutes, the company said. Although it's named the Coronavirus Prevention Robot, it's really a robot for any disease. Even if it's not coronavirus, the robot can be used to protect against outbreaks of other things like influenza, according to one of its developers. Eric Ferrer, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Football Club Barcelona is set to recommence its bid to defend the Spanish title on Saturday, June 13, against Real Mallorca. This comes after a 3-month pause due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Real Madrid, on the other hand, will host Eibar on June 14, La Liga announced on Sunday. Real Madrid will play its remaining 6 home games at the 6,000-capacity Estadio Alfredo Di Stefano, based at their training ground, a league source confirmed, while the renovation of its Santiago Bernabeu home is underway. All La Liga matches will take place without spectators until the end of the season.
A Michelin star restaurant in Virginia reopens with life-size mannequins in the dining hall. Let's find out why this is a brilliant idea from Nina Emilio.
Pandas in Bangkok, plastic pod in France, and all sorts of ways to keep physical distance in place. But when you dine in this Michelin-starred restaurant in Little Washington, Virginia, just 90 minutes west of Washington, D.C., you will give yourself a not-so-typical feast experience.
Between each table, we have these very charming and alluring mannequins.
Dining next to life-size mannequins, clad in glamorous 1940s style, could be considered quite out of the ordinary.
Sort of acting out their own narrative, and they'll be distant table companions next door to you.
But then again, so is almost everything else right now. The Inn at Little Washington, owned by Patrick O'Connell, its chef, finally reopened last Friday after nearly 2 months of closure. But as many other shuttered restaurants across the USA, it can only serve customers food in an outdoor space, and it needs to limit dining room seating to 50% of its usual capacity.
We have this gorgeous little garden. So the garden is tented, and our guests can sit more than 10 feet apart, enjoy the outdoors and nature, and have a 3-star Michelin dinner.
At first glance, some of these customers could seem a little stoic, with their vacant eyes and bygone poses. One gentle manly mannequin is even proposing to a lady next to him at the table. But Chef O'Connell hopes they will elicit some smiles in patrons, even among those who may find the dummies a bit eerie. Chef O'Connell is thankful they're living in a place where there's no incident of coronavirus infection to this day.
We're very fortunate. It's almost like being in a little bubble.
Nina Emilio, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Well, Harleen, Diego, we are entering a new chapter in our coronavirus experience.
Yeah, well, technically on paper it may seem like a new chapter. Well, I honestly don't see a difference between the MECQ and the GCQ we are experiencing right now in terms of volume of people on the road, in supermarkets, and the way people are behaving. So taking a look at all the video and the pictures of EDSA and Commonwealth, it's quite similar.
Yes, William, Jago, we were actually able to see it on the ground today. We went there on EDSA earlier today, and as I observed, a lot of vehicles really went out, and even according to MMDA, there are more than private vehicles than the commuter and other PUVs that traversed EDSA today. And I was told the LTFRB had a meeting today, and they are trying to have some adjustments on the routes, to have some route rationalization and add more public utility vehicles to serve our kababayans who had no access to other PUVs because of the limited capacities of other transport services that have been allowed under GCQ. And hopefully tomorrow and in the coming days, things will get better on the road, and our kababayans will have better experiences on the road. Jago, William?
Yes, let's hope everybody stays safe.
And a reminder lang, William, to tell everyone to stay at home if they don't need to go out.
And those are the reasons behind the news, June 1, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Angelo Castro III.
And I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you. Have a great night.